Uh, I really thank you guys for coming and joining the Robert C. Williams Museum of Papermaking. I'm Jerusha Graham, the museum coordinator, in what is our first of a virtual lecture series in support of a community of artists, African American works on paper from the Cochrane Collection. This exhibition will be on view through December. So if you're in the Atlanta area, please stop by and see us. Also, if you're in the Atlanta area, we do have a series of free guided tours that are listed here, and you can also see this listing on our website, paper.gatech.edu. And we come to the man of the hour. So Jamaal Barber is a creative, imaginative soul who was born in Virginia and raised in North Carolina. In 2013, after seeing a screen printing demo at a local art store, Jamaal started experimenting with printmaking and decided to make it his primary focus. He received his MFA in printmaking from Georgia State University, and his woodcuts and mixed media prints can be seen on display at Zuccotti Gallery. They have also been included in the Decatur Arts Festival, Atlanta Print Biennial Show, and at various art shows around the Metro Atlanta area. Additionally, Jamaal has done work for Twitter, the New York Times, Penguin Random House, Black Art in America, and Emory University. 2004, Jamaal moved to Atlanta, Georgia, where he now resides with his wife and 2 children. And he currently teaches as a visiting lecturer at Georgia State University, teaching printmaking and drawing. I will pass it off to you, Jamaal.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank everybody for coming to a little lecture today. A little bit of me coming through here. You know, I get mad excited, get the opportunity to talk about printmaking. So, like, this is gonna be a fun time, at least for me and Jerusha. I don't know about the rest of y'all, how much y'all gonna like it, but you know, we love this kind of stuff. All right. Let me see, guys. Start sharing my screen. All right. So today we're going to be talking about Black printmakers and their impact on art communities. We're looking at a great print featuring the amazing Mr. Ron Adams in the print, and kind of giving you an idea like what it's all about. People looking and him pulling prints off the stone. That's what it's all about, yo. I got to give you a warning. As we go through this, the way I give my lectures is probably 50% information and 50% passion. Just passion and nerding out and enjoying myself and like having fun with this stuff, because I find it fascinating. So you'll hear it in my voice. You'll see me get excited. If we were in a classroom, I'd be dancing around and jumping, raising my voice, moving up and down, all that good stuff. So I hope y'all like it tonight. All right, I'm Jamaal Barber. For people that don't know me, I'm Jamaal Barber, printmaker artist. I got my BA in communication arts from East Carolina University, my MFA from Georgia State in printmaking. Coincidentally, my thesis show was, I got my degree in printmaking, but my thesis show was all paintings. So there you go. That's a little riddle for you to figure out, like how that happened. I also host a podcast called Studio Noise. It's a Black art podcast. I interview Black artists from all over the world, curators, anybody that has anything to do with the art world at all, executive directors, curators, collectors, dancers, painters, sculptors, all kinds of stuff. And if it's Black people in art, then, you know, I'll be there talking about it, having a good old time. So y'all check that out. It's available on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. I think it's great and full of information. One of my favorite interviews, we actually interviewed David Driscoll. That's a good one. Y'all look that one up. It was real fun. Right now, I'm a visiting lecturer at Georgia State University and a board member for Atlanta Printmaker Studio. Jerusha, no, that's how I really got to know Jerusha. All the times where I used to live at Atlanta Printmaker Studio, just in there using the presses, community print shops. We're going to talk about that a lot today, like as we get going. But Atlanta Printmaker Studio also moving into an amazing new facility in Hapeville. Like, it's really time for y'all to really learn printmaking, get into a great space, yo. You really want to get a load of it. They're moving in next week. I think classes start in October. So y'all look that up. Atlanta Printmaker Studio. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. I suggest everybody go there because I love it myself. And you can find me at www.jbarberstudio.com. And that's enough about me. Now we're going to move forward with the business. All right. And so tonight we're celebrating this show. I got a chance to walk by and see the show with Jerusha. It is a fantastic show. It features some amazing, amazing work. The Cochrans, I really want to give a shout out to them for allowing their collection to be seen. They had a version of it also at Georgia State earlier this year. That was also fantastic. So it's too many prints to name. They have a tremendous collection. And a lot of the talks here are inspired by some of the prints that I saw inside of the show. And so also want to thank the Paper Museum and Jerusha and everybody down there that all the work they do. Fantastic place. Make sure you visit it. You come to Atlanta. All right. So we got to start at the beginning, right? Like, before we get into all that, what is printmaking? Like, what is this? Printmaking is an artistic process based on the principle of transferring images from a matrix onto a surface, most often paper or fabric. So traditional printmaking techniques include woodcuts, etchings, engravings, lithography, and screen printing. We talk about all that today. But really what we're thinking about is how do you use artistic processes to make multiples? And that's kind of the thing. The idea of multiples, having not just one product be created, but as many products as you can envision and in many variations as you can envision. And that is a super important way that you're making prints, right? It's not like paintings. Paintings, they just sit in their little rooms with their little funny little gloves on, their little maul sticks, and they just making one painting. Like, that's kind of boring, right? And so master printmakers. What is a master printmaker? Well, obviously, we can consider it a person that specializes in printmaking, like whatever that is. And all the people that we're talking about today have their own specialties. They are quote unquote masters at what they do because there's not too many problems they run into that they don't have an answer for, or they haven't seen or haven't come up with. A lot of these people that we talk about are experimental. They're creating the techniques. They're changing the medium itself as we go along. And so master printers often own or operate their own print making studio or print shop. And that's what all the people we feature tonight have their own print shops. And they publish, they do printing services, educational workshops and classes, mentorship of artists and art residencies. All that is entailed in it. And so it takes a real special kind of individual to really get into this. And we'll talk about them a little bit as we go forward. The main difference we got to start to consider is printmaking as a service. Like, you go to the master printer, you go to a print shop, and you're looking to get something done. And so that's one way to do it. You bring in your painting. I want to make copies of this or limited edition silk screen or offset litho. And you come, you give it to them, money's exchanged, and it can be, that and that, everybody, wipe their hands, shake hands, you get the prints, they get the money, and it's all good. Or we can start to approach it as two artists coming into the studio together with the intention of creating something. And using the techniques of printmaking, using the knowledge and expertise of the master printer to see the vision realized in the new medium that the person may or may not be familiar with. And that's the benefit of having a master printer. You don't have to take the time. You don't have to do the 10,000 hours of making screens and, cleaning litho stones and stuff like that to be able to do it. That's what he's there for. So with that knowledge and that communication, something special can happen between those two. And you end up creating a lot of new pieces that would never have been birthed, that you could never have thought of on your own. And so Curly Holton's one of my favorite. He has this quote where he talks about, my commitment was to facilitate that's Mr. David Driscoll, creative ambitions and his aesthetics, and to advance that and push that if I could, and to contribute to it. That's how the master printer approaches it. Like, you have a vision, a particular way of working, like a particular idea. How can I help you realize that? How can I add my level of expertise and make it a technically proficient print, but also make sure that you get where you want to go with it? And so Curly has all kinds of stories about him and David Driscoll, how David Driscoll used to carve into old pieces of wood he found on the street. You know what I'm saying? They had to struggle to print with and all that kind of stuff. But it's really the expertise that allows it to be printed and make a product that they both can be satisfied with. Before we get into like the real revolutionary people, that's going to be the subject of our talk tonight, I want to make sure that we know that these master printers, these Black master printers, come from a tradition, right? It's not, they don't appear out of thin air. And we want to also make sure that we realize that we are talking about Blackness in America. And in doing that, we have to wrestle with this kind of intense racial history that we have. And not to forget the people that came before them, that it's only a matter of circumstance that they were where they were, right? Not talent. It's not about talent or ability, because there were many, many, many gifted printmakers, gifted artists, gifted people that were not allowed to reach their full potential because of, obviously, the racial system in America. So we can't forget people like Patrick Reason, who was a sculptor and engraver. He showed depicted images of slavery, but his way of handling the slave gave the slave humanity. And so that was obviously going to be a difference. The perspective that you bring into your artwork obviously produces the difference. And he, at the time, couldn't get work as an engraver because they didn't want to work with him, right? That's the history, but he still persevered. He still made some fantastic stuff. Also think about Grafton Tyler Brown. He was a painter, a lithographer, an abolitionist, the only known Black lithographer in his time. Only known Black lithographer would say. I'm sure there were others that were doing the work but not getting credit. But he worked for a printer in Philadelphia when he was 14. That's when he learned how to do lithography. And he went on to have a career painting landscapes in San Francisco. He made some fantastic prints, really technically excellent. And we got James L. Wells and Elza Cortoro. Obviously, great men in and of himself. James L. Wells taught at Howard, was one of David Driscoll's professors at the time. So there's a rich history of printmaking from all different styles, from all different subject matters, all different mediums. And it's really fascinating when you really get into how they were processing it back in the day. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I think we can't really have a conversation, well, any conversation that you have about Black master printers has to start with this man right here, Mr. Robert Blackburn. Founded the Creative Graphics Workshop in 1947 by acquiring his own lithography press. It was renamed the Printmaking Workshop in 1963 and incorporated into a nonprofit in 1971. We're going to talk more about his workshop before, but just talk a little bit about his history and who he was as an individual, because I think that like plays a big part in the impact that a master printer has, that Bob Blackburn in particular had on people. It was to the person. Everybody will describe Bob Blackburn as an extremely passionate person, right? Everybody would describe him as the nicest individual that they've ever met. And so that spirit that he has, that sense of community, that sense of teaching, that sense of the one to pass on the wonder that he have in the print medium was the foundation of his workshop. And you can go all the way back to, he grew up in Harlem. So during the Harlem Renaissance, he took classes. Actually, that's probably on the slide that I have. But I'll say he took classes and did everything, and communicated, was in mentorship with the artists from the Harlem Renaissance. Charles Austin was one of his big mentors. And he learned that sense of community, I think, from them. I think coming through that time, Black artists, Black people from all over, all different mediums, writers, artists, visual, dance, music, everybody coming together. I think that sense of community really embedded itself in this man. But I think that he took that and transferred it into the print medium, into his print practice, to the point where he put his own work to the back burner and focused so much on helping other people that he didn't make as many prints for himself as I think he could have. And so he's the first master printer for the ULAE Universal Limited Art Editions, where he printed the first 79 editions for artists including Helen Frankenthaler, Grace Hardigan, Jasper Johns, Robert Rauschenberg, and Larry Rivers. He did that from 1957 and 1962. Like literally, the all the big names that you could possibly think of were printed by this man right here. And so his approach to lithography is legendary, and there's no other way to describe it. At the Harlem Art Community Center, he took printmaking classes and learned lithography right back in the day. In 1934, Art Student League professional printer became his youngest faculty member in 1936, where he developed a deep relationship with Will Barnett. Will Barnett is very important on his artistic journey because I think together, Will Barnett, also an amazing printer, but together they shared a love and passion for lithography, and their experimental tone that they set with each other, constantly pushing each other. They really developed Americans' touch for lithography. They changed how people looked at it. I'm gonna skip slides a little bit, but he revolutionized lithography because a lot of these processes that we're talking about in terms of printmaking, because of the multiple, were only used to create artifacts to disseminate. They weren't used at the time for making original art, not how we think of it now. And so they really broke from that. Instead of making simple recreations of imagery, he wanted to get the texture. He wanted to get the color. He wanted to get the layering. He rethought how people were printing at the time. That can't be understated. He was a genius, right? You can't really tell the story of printmaking in America without talking about this contribution. He was a part of the big print boom that we're having in the 1960s because of his efforts, because of how he approached it, how he changed how people saw each color as, I gotta say this. So I want to explain it a little different. Before, when they were doing reproductions, they wanted to do as close as color accuracy as they could with as little color as possible. And so you're trying to like reduce things, get stuff to layer and produce secondary colors. Bob Blackburn approach was a way more painterly approach. So if it was a stroke, instead of having to reduce down the number of colors you were using, he was actually using as many colors as he wanted to make his image. So a lot of his images are full of depth, like full of texture, full of color. It felt more painterly than print, but it's still a print. So it can still be additions and all this other stuff. And so that was really a game changer in how people were approaching printmaking at the time. And he also set up a shop to be community based because he was such a teacher. He didn't want there to be a barrier to anybody coming and doing and making a print. Literally, he wanted people to come off the street, and often people did. First-time printmakers, experts, all come in and just making the work. That was all that was, important to him. And I think that can't be understated because there were places, you're talking about the 1930s, 1940s, where Bob Blackburn couldn't print. For all his mastery, there were still places that wouldn't let him come into their facilities. And so creating his own workshop automatically made a place where Black people were welcome, where Cubans were welcome, where Mexicans were welcome, where white people were welcome, where everybody from all economic classes and race were allowed to come in and make studio and be together and be joined together by the love of printmaking, by the exploration of the medium. And that can't be understated. You really can't understate how significant that is, that for the first time, people have access to making the print, right? And so it'll bring us to the Bob Blackburn workshop. Still in existence today, has gone through a lot of changes. He had a lot of financial problems keeping it up. So there were periods where they weren't making prints, but he worked with other master printers to pay for it. Like he really sacrificed to get it done because it was his commitment to it. And that commitment really resonated because a lot of people came to the studio, experienced it, and left and started their own studios with the same vision, the same mission. So it was really spreading like the love of printmaking, but there's also the sense of community that were bringing all these people together. So the Block Back Burn Workshop, this is the mission of the Block Back Burn Workshop coming from their own website, right? It's a cooperative printmaking space that provides professional quality printmaking facilities to students and printmakers of every skill level. We are committed to inspiring and fostering a racially, ethnically, and culturally diverse artistic community dedicated to making of fine art prints in an environment that embraces technical and aesthetic exploration, innovation, and collaboration. There are over 4,000 artists and over 20,000 prints in the archive, including artists like Elizabeth Catlett, Emma Amos, Charles White, Krishna Reddy, Faith Ringo, Melvin Edwards, among others. And so Bob Blackburn, I think just because of him, the strength of who he was as a person, that everybody, you can't find anybody that say a bad word about the man. And so everybody came to work with Bob, right? Everybody that was anybody that could came to work at that studio. And that's an amazing thing. You know what I mean? And so over here in the corner, there's another quote. When I finished school, oh man, that's a stupid thing in the way. Now I can't see it. But anyway, it's a quote up here. Y'all can see it. But he wanted to make a space because he needed a place to print and he thought other people needed it too. You know, this is one of my favorite pictures of Bob. The kind of bluey one. It's the blackest picture of a printmaker I've ever seen in my life. Is the dude got his shirt off with the apron on. And that's just as black as it can get, yo, right there. I'm just saying. All right, we're moving on to another person. Got Ron Adams. Ron Adams worked at Gemini Jail, GEL, printmaking shop in addition to press in San Francisco. He opened Hand Graphics Limited in 1974. He collaborated on both lithographs and etchings with artists such as Charles White, Jasper Johns, Robert Rauschenberg, Ellsworth Kelly, Johns Biggers, Judy Chicago, Luis Jimenez, and many others. He retired from printing and sold hand graphics to Michael Costello in 1987, in order to focus on his own artistic career. But Ron Adams, another one, very generous individual. There's a story about how when Charles White was getting towards his last days, he actually drove a litho stone across country to Charles White's house and left his truck and the litho stone at Charles White's house so he could get it whenever he wanted it. And then just went back to get it. It's that kind of commitment, right? To just sharing, right? Giving of yourself. Like that's a big thing to do. That sacrifice and commitment to other people being able to work. Key to being a great master printer. Got Lou Stovall. He opened the Lou Stovall Workshop in 1968 as a small active screen print workshop focused primarily on printing community posters. He has some tremendous community posters. Again, when we're talking about community and kind of being accessible to different races and different cultures, you start to get in and want to focus more on helping the community. I know Elizabeth Catlett spoke a lot about the role that printmaking had in the movement, right? And being able to disseminate messages to people, right? The ability to make multiples is inherently democratic because, and this is a commerce thing we'll talk about a little bit later too, when you have one painted and the artist is spending all their time and money and energy making it, there's a certain cost that comes with that. You're making an art product. Whether we want to actually, get into the specifics of that or not, when you're making prints, you're obviously making more than one product, and the multiplicity allows you to cut down the cost of it and also allows you to give it to more people. And that community focus, you'll find it a lot in printmaking work, used in protests. Even now, when we're talking about other debates that's happening in the country, print is a part of that as well. And so that community-based aspect of it never leaves the medium. Under Louis Stovall's leadership, the workshop evolved into an internationally respected printmaking facility and worked with artists such as Jacob Lawrence, Sam Gilliam, Elizabeth Catlett, Robert Mango, and others. Stovall's own prints and dramas are part of numerous public and private collections throughout the world. Now, he had this shop set up in the DC area. And so there's certain interviews where he talks about people asking him if he ever thought about leaving. And he said, one, they couldn't leave because they were too busy. And two, why would I leave when everybody was coming to me? That's interesting. I like that idea. He stayed busy. And so Lou Stovall, we got Bob Blackburn, who was the grandmaster in lithography. We got Lou Stovall, who's a grandmaster in screen printing. His screen printing techniques were superb. Technically excellent is the best way to put it. But one of his approaches, which I found so fascinating, is he was planning, and this is a quote from him, I'm planning to print 50 to 100 colors on the average print. On the average print, he was printing 50 to 100 colors. That's a lot of colors. Now, I don't know too many people that can have the patience to really envision what that means, how much work that is. But it's an extreme amount of work, let me tell you. And I know that that color number 1 will have to relate to color number 70. And you sort of work through the timing that it takes to make the print. So whether it takes a day or a week or a month, you do whatever is necessary. I think that it speaks so much about his work ethic, right? Speaks so much about the dedication to the medium. Speaks so much about the interest in the process, because that's dedication. Let me tell you, you pull in 70 colors on a print and still have to always figure that it has to come together somehow. And as you're building, to just let it build in a way that it just takes a certain amount of expertise, right? A certain amount of excellence in yourself, your technical abilities and vision to be able to do that kind of thing. And without eating the fingers off your hand, you know what I'm saying? Chewing and getting it down. And the workshop was a place where he would let artists come to work with him and he would teach them about printing. And in return, they would teach other people. He talked about, as he was working with other people, he went to open his own studio and he talked to his financial backer. He was telling him, they asked him, Lou, what do you want to do? And Lou said that he wants to have a place where anybody can come to print and he'll teach them how to print, anybody, as long as they went and taught somebody else when they left, right? Again, back to the community-based focus. This is something that we are doing together. We are involving together. We are teaching together. We are artists coming together inside of a space and sharing with each other in an open way, right? To make something better than what we possibly would have made before. And so he wanted them to use my expertise to see your vision. That's a gift, right? That's the type of attitude that is rare. I'll say that is rare. And so a lot of the best printmakers, master printers, have that kind of attitude. Alan Edmonds with Brandywine. He founded the Brandywine Workshop and Archives. There's a great interview with him on Hello Print Friend podcast. And he talks about all the work that went into creating this studio and how now they are in the process of archiving it all and making it digital and accessible for people to study and actually be a part of academic curriculum. And so he's been making prints for years. He's a fantastic thing. They do a lot of offset lithography at Brandywine. So the Brandywine Workshop, founded in 1972, is a collective of artists and teachers incorporated as a 501c3 in 74. In its earliest years, Brandywine focused on facilitating hands-on work with local teenagers and young artists and went on to produce a limited edition screen printed fine art. Visual art residencies were introduced in 1975 with a collaboration between the Brandywine Workshop and abstract expressionist Sam Gilliam. This is one of Sam Gilliam's prints with the workshop, printed in 1987. And, rest in peace to Sam Gilliam. He's no longer with us, but he did some fantastic work. Again, it allowed artists to come in and experiment with the medium of printmaking to see how it fit into their own work. And so we know Sam Gilliam as an abstractionist, and a colorist to me, in my opinion, a master of form, master of texture. And you can see all of that in this print. You can see all the different layers of color, but then all the prints are cut and collage and pieced back together in that Sam Gilliam kind of way that he had to do it. Another guy, Mr. Curly Holton, with the Experimental Printmaking Institute. I got to spend some time with Curly myself at the Experimental Printmaking Institute for a couple months. It was a fantastic place. I fell in love with it. Just imagine just spending 2 months printing, waking up, walking out, walking out of my room around the back into this print shop, and then go right back to bed and then wake up and do it again for 2.5 months. That's what my life was. And I loved it. I loved it. I can't get enough of it. I wish I could go back. It was a fantastic time. But the Experimental Printmaking Institute was founded at Lafayette College in Eastern Pennsylvania. Holton founded the Experimental Printmaking Institute with a vision to provide artists with the time, space, materials, and professional support to create new work. The vision was realized with more than 200 works produced. Curly was also in 2014 appointed as executive director of the David Driskell Center. He had a very close and special relationship with David Driskell. Was his, not, I want to say, is it number one? I want to say he might be the number one. Jerusha will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he was David Driskell's official master printer. Towards the end, he printed so many of David Driskell's. I actually got to print a David Driskell during my time there at the EPI. It was fantastic. But Curly is a genius, right? Just in terms of how it is. The way EPI was set up is that you can go, especially when you don't work in the print medium. He would invite artists that do other things and let them explore print, right? To bring somebody like Melvin Edwards, who does sculptures and installations, stuff like that. Let him bring that expertise into the print medium and allow you to rethink how things are printed, how the blocks are constructed, how you making your matrices and crafting them, and see how it relates to your practice. I think that's fascinating. I love that idea of the kind of freedom that it gives you. That is much way beyond just, all right, we're going to make a print for print's sake. No, we're going to let you have a vision. Then we'll figure out how to piece it together. That is the benefit of having a master printer with you. And so EPI, the Mission Experimental Institute, provide an environment which professionals and students can create, investigate new and experimental approaches to the print medium. One of the first people that he invited out to do the residencies, I think it was in 93, was Faith Ringo. So Faith Ringo continued to work with EPI throughout the years that Curly was there. And she made some tremendous work out of there. Like all her books, this is from the Jones Rose series. Fantastic work. She too is another genius. So all you got to do is give geniuses the opportunity to make stuff, and they come up with some beautiful, beautiful work. And so as we get down, and I spoke about a lot of different things, but I'll try to sum it up in these last few slides as to what the benefit is of having these Black master printers with us, right? First of all, we can't ignore the economic impact of having a Black master printer, right? It's the ability to sell multiple fine art products equals more money to the artist. It's as simple as that, right? You want to do something, you want to reach as many people as possible. And how do you do that? You can make one painting, or you can make 100, 200, 500 prints in an edition, and then let that be what disseminates to the people. It's the dissemination of reputation and imagery. So it just increases your reach, right? And so now, instead of having your one piece at one museum, now you can have your one piece at multiple museums and in the hands of collectors and in people's homes, and where people can get to it and see it, like, and have value for it. And so also the price of what you're making is all the way down when you think about the cost is spread over 150 prints instead of one. Obviously, when you get the one, you might be paying $50,000 for one, like Kara Walker piece, but you might be able to get a print, you know what I'm saying, for like 2, 4, 5. I mean, maybe not Kara Walker, maybe it's a bad example That's a terrible example, actually. You can't get no affordable Carol Walker work, but anyway, but you get what I'm saying. It just gives you the opportunity to disseminate your work and your message, your vision as an artist to more people, as many people as possible. You create more fans of your work. You create the opportunities for people to be collectors. It's the economic part of what we do that nobody wants to talk about that part. That's not why any of these people ever made any work. Bob Blackburn is the perfect example for the kind of financial struggles that he went through because of his dedication to keeping an open community space. And, thank God that in the end, like towards the end of his life, Elizabeth Foundation for the Arts managed to bring his workshop into their program. And now the legacy continues. They're still making prints, still bringing people in, still teaching classes. So his vision is still prominent. Two, there's an artistic component to what the benefit is of having a master printer. Artists have the ability to explore mediums, techniques, and ideas. And we've got to rewind all the way back to the 1940s when Bob Blackburn opened his studio in the 1960s. There were not a lot of places where Black artists could go and create high quality edition, technically excellent prints. They wouldn't be accepted, right? The museums wouldn't accept their work. The museum wouldn't show their work. So we had to create the environments where we could have access, because it's not circumstance that people couldn't work in these print shops. It was circumstance, not ability. It wasn't talent. It was circumstance. It was racism. It was this white supremacist attitude that Black people shouldn't be allowed to do certain things that we had to combat against. And you needed somebody like Bob Blackburn to open a space, to make the equipment available. And now you have a flood of Black artists exploring the medium, creating legendary works because of that influence. And exploration leads to advancements of the medium. We can't even begin to list the different techniques that Bob Blackburn created. We can't begin to list the different techniques created by Lou Stovall in printmaking, the way he layered, the way he changed the medium to fit what he needed it to do, right? That collaboration that happened because these Black master printers made it happen. And so we can't understate how important they are to the medium itself. So there are plenty of, world-class master print schools out there. Think of Tamarind as a lithography school. But the real work was being done by a lot of these people at the Blackburn studio, coming in, bringing their ideas and being welcomed, right? Challenged, accepted, and then explored. And with somebody with these personalities is just amazing. So I think about Jakara Booker. One of Jakara Booker prints is actually in the show. It's a fantastic print, but her series of prints that she did at the Blackburn workshop, the printmaking workshop. If anybody doesn't know Jakara Booker, let me go back to a picture of her. This is her with the head wrap on. She looks like an artist. She looks like she's about to make some stuff. But Jakara Booker makes sculptures out of tires, like tire parts and stuff that she tear apart. They're beautiful. They're wonderful. But you would never think of her in a two-dimensional medium. And you especially wouldn't think of her work to come out looking like this, right? That's the kind of room that you get to come into a medium and simply explore. Like, these don't look like Elizabeth Catlett. Like, these don't look like a Charles White. These don't look like a Bob Blackburn. This is a whole new thing that she came in with her artistic genius and created a beautiful series of abstracts from the Blackburn studio. I think there are over 100 of them that she made. It couldn't even be addition. And if I was to describe how she made these, it is confusing how she made it, but it's also like technically a marvel and how many pieces you were able to put together for this thing. But these are fantastic prints. One of them included in the show. Make sure y'all go check it out. But having somebody like her who is known as a sculptor to be able to explore the medium, and then have a master printer there with you, not as a safety net, but just as a guard, just as a guide, as somebody that come in to let you know what we can do and how we can do it, and be willing to push the limits of the medium with you. So these are beautiful prints. There's a book called Print Me, released by the Blackburn Studio of all this Chicago Book of Works. The process is fascinating. Y'all need to look it up. That's a whole 45-minute conversation by itself about all her wonderful work. And ultimately, it comes down to community. All of these people, all of them, emphasize accessibility. They emphasize the community nature of print by itself. I talk about that with Atlanta Printmaker Studio a lot, where there's no way that you can get 10 printmakers that have $10,000 to $12,000 to buy an etching press and put it in their living room. Like that kind of stuff, it's just not what we do. It's not gonna be happening. But to have a place where people can go and use these really, really like old, really, really expensive, really, really big equipment, but have access to it and be able to explore a medium, be able to make work, be able to be in concert with other artists and like minds to come up with work, to have ideas, and to create freely. Like that kind of thing, I think is fundamentally what the Black master printers were about, especially people like Bob Blackburn, especially people like Curly Holton, who also learned at the printmaking workshop to study with Bob Blackburn. And access. You can't make it if you can't use equipment, right? You can't begin to explore. You can begin to explore, but you can't get into like the real good stuff. You can't do just pull up and start doing offset lithography. Like it doesn't happen. It's not possible. Nobody just pulls up and is like, suddenly I got 100-pound litho stone and I'm just going to draw and print from it real quick. Like that's not how it works, right? Having the ability to have somewhere to go, having the ability for somebody to be welcoming of you. The welcoming part is the part that, to me, that's that little bit of that community spirit that sprinkle out through all these people is was really essential to their success and essential to the success of all these master printers. That's it. I hope y'all are still with me. I hope y'all ain't fall asleep on me.
Thank you so much, Jamaal. Oh man, that was so good. I should say that we're moving into our kind of Q&A portion. What it was that grabbed you in 2013 and your journey. I didn't say it in the introduction, and I've told Jamaal this before. I feel like he is the legacy of Blackburn. He's always pulling people into the studio, and again, regardless of the medium that they work with, and he's like, come on through the studio, and helping them translate what they do. When they make a print with Jamaal, it still is their work. When you see it, you can still see them in what gets produced. So can you tell us a little bit more about your journey as a printmaker?
Oh yeah. So for me, it started off like you said in the beginning, it was just randomly saw a screen printed demo, and I don't know, when I saw the demo, I just kind of knew like what to do. I knew what I wanted to do, and I figured out like, this is with my direction. So I was doing watercolor, so I stopped doing that and just picked up screen printing that day, and it turned into me doing woodcuts, and I just fell in love with the carving and printing and doing stuff. I mean, that's when me and you started hanging out together almost every other day at Atlanta Printmaker Studio, like for like 2 years, with just me and you in there, like like making work and doing stuff. And I don't know, I just fell in love with the process of it. For me, it gave me a lot of comfort because I never felt lost. When I do paintings, I always feel lost. When I'm doing prints, I never feel lost because there's always another step, right? There's always something else that you got to do. You can't keep carving because you're not going to have nothing to print. So you got to stop like eventually. And so I just fell in love with that, and like being in a community environment where, seeing people come in the print shop, they're making wedding invitations, they're, using the letterpress, they're, doing, making birds or whatever it is, like that thing. I just like talking to artists. Like I like being there, like having the conversations and doing the questions, saying, figuring stuff out. And it's nothing like that. Like it kind of eats at your brain a little bit. Like you get all your little brain synapses are firing because it's like you got to figure out this problem, and I miss it when it's not there. You know what I mean? So like part of it is like me selfishly, I need something to work on. Like I want to get somebody else in there. Like I'm having so much fun. Like we can have fun doing this together. Like it's that type of thing. So I'm always into like bringing people into the space and having us make something, just anything. It doesn't matter what it is. You know what I mean? Like if you're good enough, if you can draw, you can make an action. You know what I mean? Like if you can move your hands, if you can sculpt clay, then you can do woodcut. Like, so it's like, and it's, all of it is so basic. It's so easy to teach people. And then you are amazed at the results that they get like all the time. So I love printing with people and working with people. It's just, I don't know, the whole process is fun for me.
Gotcha. Um, do you have a favorite media techniques? So there's screen print, there's lithography, there's relief, there's etching.
It's funny because of the way I learned it, I don't see it as separate processes, right? Like I taught myself screen printing, but I immediately went into doing woodcuts. So once you can start using them together, like it's hard to see them as separate things. Like I don't know if I could make just a woodcut, you know what I mean? Or it would feel a little boring, you know what I mean? Like, I gotta put some sauce on this thing, you know what I mean? Like I could do something so different with it, or just do just a screen print. Like it's been years since I did just this thing, you know what I mean? Like, cause the mixing it together is like the real exciting stuff. Like when you get surprised when it comes off the press, like there's nothing like it. But if you ask me for real, like if it was to sit down and wake up like, Jamaal, you can only do one thing, I'm doing woodcuts.
So we do have a couple of questions. There's
All right.
two questions that both are dealing with books. So I'm going to read both of them and let you. What books would you suggest to learn more about the Black printers and artists using the print medium? And it says Print Me as a book. You mentioned
Yeah.
Print Me as a book that one should review. Are there one or two other books about other African?
Mm,
Yeah, so it's basically the same question, just from two different people.
yeah. Let's see. There's a book. Oh, let's see. I might have one with me here. Oh, this book is great. This is You Can Fly and Make Prints Too. That's from the Experimental Printmaking Institute. It's from Curly. This is a
I
great
love
book. I
that
really,
title.
yeah. That comes from the Faith Ringo. This is the Faith Ringo, the first etching she did when she was at the print studio with Curly, where she did. It's great. But yeah, that's a great book. There's so many great books about Bob Blackburn. Um, Bob Blackburn Through the Passages, I think is the name of the book. That's a great one. Um, Lou Stovall has a book. I think it's called Lou Stovall. I forget the name of it. I should have came with the names of the books. But yeah, like there are definitely some really great books. Elizabeth Catlett, who I didn't talk about a lot, but she has some tremendous books about her printmaking journey. From being from here, going down to Mexico, making prints, like getting kicked out of the U.S. and then coming back to the U.S. She did a great essay called "A Role of the Black Artist." So there's a lot of, just gotta look them up. It's not one in particular, but I collect so many books. It's hard for me to think of one because the last one I got, I think, was a Charles White book, but it didn't focus on his prints. It was more about like some of his later work and his drawings.
Um, and the Black Panther, the book that you, what is his name?
Oh,
The
Emory Douglas.
yes, yeah,
Yeah, Emory Douglas has a great book about Emory Douglas. He's fascinating too.
yeah. Um,
And again, I'm gonna emphasize this: like, the black printmakers are not all master printers, right? So Elizabeth Catlett is a fantastic printer, but she never printed editions for other people, as far as I know. She would that wasn't her thing. She worked with other people to make editions, but she never like printed other people editions. Same thing for Emory Douglas, who worked with the Black Panther Party, making all of their he was the minister of culture for the Black Panthers. He made all of their protest posters and stuff, but he never printed editions for other people.
and that leads to a question. Could you talk a little bit more about the teaching in an academic institution and master printing, and then kind of in a print uh, in the side there about the parallels and differences?
Okay, yeah. So I think they're essentially the same, right? I think when you're working with students, I know at Howard University um they had James Wells, Lois Malu Jones for there. She did some print work. At FIS, you had, Elizabeth Catlett doing stuff. And like all of it in the effort to teach, you are basically serving as a master printer for other people, helping them develop. But the purpose is different, right? The purpose of helping somebody develop in their own print work as a teacher compared to a collaboration as a master printer, to me, is fundamentally different because the expectation of the two is different, right? Because most of the time you go to a master printer, you're expecting to make a product that has some kind of destination, some kind of direction to it. Even when you come and like, yo, we're just gonna have fun and mess around. We're gonna mess around, but when we make these prints, we're gonna do something with them for sure. Like, but that's always the deal. But when teaching, the way I approach it, I'll speak for myself. The way I approach it is I'm trying to get them to think through the process of creation, right? And so whether or not they actually make anything is sort of not even the point. It's just how you can begin to understand the process of it. Like, what are you doing? How are you approaching it? And then, yeah, we're going to make some prints along the way, but it's not, to me, it's not the burden of doing it in universities. That's the same burden that you have as a master printer. Like when you come to me as a master printer, we are expecting to do, expecting a product like at some point. So I think to me, that's the difference.
Okay. Um, so someone wants to know if the work that's behind you is yours and what medium?
Oh yeah, this is mine. This is painting. This is acrylic painting. So you see you in my paintings, you'll see I paint like a printmaker. Like when I paint, like it's mixing colors and layering it, just like screen prints and stuff like that. And so like you even see like the black line kind of thing, the same thing you'll see in my prints, going from like heavy blacks into like abstract pattern design and back and forth. So that to me, that's just a feature of how I think. Like I've been doing it too long. Been doing it too long. I can't stop thinking and seeing mark making and lines and balancing black areas and stuff like that. Like that's just a part of what I do now. So yeah, that one is mine. I have a lot of other stuff around here too. But I'm always making something, doing something different. Like it's the exploration. You know what I'm saying? I just need to be making stuff.
Yeah. There's a request that could they see the whole thing.
Oh. Yeah, get out of the way, Jamal. Yeah. I got you. Let's see. Can't see it. It's pretty large. So this is a acrylic on paper. Oh, still away. It's pretty big. So I'm trying something different. Doing a lot of layerings, especially coming out of school. I told y'all I in my grad school I started painting like at the end because of the pandemic, like because I couldn't get to the presses because everything was closed. So I started painting. And so that kind of like opened up a whole new thing where I'm kind of pushing in two different directions. I'm developing painting as a style, but also trying to integrate my printmaking into it. And so you'll see like a lot of my work coming up is it feature my faces, but also feature some of this, crazy stuff collaged around it and stuff like that. I'm trying to find a way to make it into my prints. I think I discovered color when I was painting. I discovered color while I was painting. So now I can't let it go. I can't just go back and do like straight black and white prints like I used to.
Do you have a dream print collab?
Ooh, dream print collab. You know what? My dream is to open up like a printmaking workshop here in Atlanta. Like I wouldn't mind doing it. Maybe I'll run it out of Atlanta Printmaking Studio. But yeah, like that to me, that's the dream because it's not necessarily one dream commission, but it's the process of it that I'm really in love with. Like the whole coming and working with people and not knowing what we're gonna do, but just being excited by it, like figuring it out. And so that's not just one person, that's like a lot of people. Because as much as I know a lot of painters, I know a lot of like ceramics people that do a lot of work too that I wouldn't mind working with. And so I'm looking for just diversity, and how people think, because that adds so much to the print. Just how they approach it is so, I don't know. It's you can't prepare yourself for the crazy stuff people come up with. And that's exciting. You know what I mean?
And then our last, because we are coming up on the hours. Are you familiar with Cincinnati artist Tom Shaw's woodcut series, The Malcolm X Paradox? It's powerful, they say.
No. What's the artist name? Thomas Shaw?
Tom Shaw,
Shaw.
THOMSHAW.
No, but I will look that up. So it's funny. I'm teaching a relief printmaking class, and I'm finding so many names from people like from way back in the day. And these not all black printmakers either, but people like John Ross, who did some amazing like woodcut landscapes back in the day, like cityscapes. They're really beautiful. Or people like Barbara Brash. Like I've never seen her work before in my life, but now I look at it, it's like I'm piecing it apart. So it's just a whole nother world for me to start to explore. And I love this stuff. I can look at prints and talk about it all day long. You know what I mean? Like I really could have done 45 minutes on either one of these people. So, y'all got the very, very condensed version.
Well, I encourage you guys to save the chat because a couple of folks have been really kind to drop in some links. So there's a link there for a Tom Shaw video in the chat. I've got a couple of slides to share with you guys, and I'll let you go. This has been a wonderful talk, and I did want to ask you, there's like most of the people that you mentioned, even though like Curly and Alan and even Lou Stovall is still, living and kicking and doing their thing. Yeah. But do you have any kind of more contemporary, like the next gen of printmakers that you might shout out?
Oh, definitely check out the Black Women of Print. Like they have a fantastic array of printmakers. Deborah Grayson's in there, Tanikia Ward, Delita Martin, Chloe Alexander right here from Atlanta is in there, doing big things. So like that group is definitely one to watch. Katrina Landry, she's phenomenal. She's down in New Orleans. Steve Prince is a fantastic printmaker. Carves extremely fast. He's making outfits for plays and stuff now. Like he's doing tremendous work. Yeah, and he's going crazy, yo. He's going crazy. And I don't know, it's so many. I think I feel like it's a resurgence in prints. I also feel like it's a resurgence of people carving and using print techniques in their regular work. I think is fascinating how I'm starting to see people like carve their panels you know what I mean? Like in the same way, but not print them. Painting the wood blocks and showing and
Yeah.
displaying as finished work. Like that's not that kind of stuff is tremendous. So there's a lot of great stuff out there for y'all to look at. And me,
Thank
of
you,
course.
Jamal.
You can look at
Yeah.
me too. Got, I got some
Uh,
new stuff on the way.
you want to give your website or your Instagram?
Oh yeah. My website is jbarberstudio.com and my Instagram is at jbarberstudio. So I'm always up there. Pardon my married at first sight rants I go on from time to time, but there's a lot about artwork and stuff.
Oh, thank you so much, Jamal. If you all enjoyed this talk, I hope that you'll join us for the remaining 2 talks in the lecture series. On Tuesday, September 20th, we'll be joined by Jasmine Wilson, and she'll be talking about the power of women's voices through the collection of the Spelman College Museum of Art and the Cochrane Collection. And then shoot, I just realized I have the date wrong on Dr. Kimberly's listing. Tuesday, November 1st is the first Tuesday of November. We'll be hearing from Dr. Kimberly Diana Jacobs, and she'll be discussing African American contributions to the art world through the collection of Clark Atlanta University as well as the Cochrane collection. So both of these collections are just amazing. Again, if you're in the Atlanta area, you don't want to miss seeing whatever the current exhibition is up, and you'll get to hear them talk a little bit more about the pieces that they have in their collections. And then we have an in-person program. It'll be a reception and artist talk on Monday, October 3rd from 6:30 to 8:30. The artist talks will start at 7. And we'll be hearing from Jim Alexander, Radcliffe Bailey, Kevin Cole, and Tina Dunkley that evening. Once again, Monday, October 3rd. If you're in the Atlanta area, you don't want to miss getting to hear these amazing artists speak about their work. And I mentioned earlier, but we do have guided tours. They're free and open to the public. You can see the full listing on our website, paper.gatech.edu. We're located on Georgia Tech's campus. And if you want to see us on social media, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. If you would like to support programs like this continuing to be free offerings, we do accept donations. You'll find our link there at the bottom of the screen. Oh, here it is. mygeorgiatech.ga-tech.edu/giving/papermaking-museum. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Jamal, for the amazing talk. It just makes me want to get in the studio and print something. Good
Real
night,
quick, I want
everyone.
to give a quick shout out
Oh.
that Jamal will be teaching an in-person silkscreen printmaking workshop at the museum on Tuesday evening of November 15th. So check out our website to register for that.
Oh, I'm so sorry. How could I have forgotten to list that? Can you give the date one more time?
Yes, it's Tuesday, November 15th. He'll be teaching the silkscreen printmaking workshop. So please register for that and come if you're local to the Atlanta area. We'd love to have you in our studio with Jamal learning and exploring printmaking.
Yeah, you'll get to experience this passion firsthand. All right. Thank you all so much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.